Okay, I'm going to continue putting our videos like this in Google Forms so you can follow along with me if you need it as I read the questions and the story aloud. Now, I've added a little bit more to this text this week or this test this week just to make sure we're mastering everything that we're talking about. So the vocabulary is in here. As well as some questions about common nouns and proper nouns. There's questions about nature's patchwork quilt. These questions will probably look really familiar as they were in your review yesterday. And then you have another informative text to read and answer questions. So go ahead and follow along with me. For the first 5 questions, you are going to choose the word or word group that has about the same meaning as the underlined word or phrase. Many animals survive through interdependence. What does interdependence mean? Relying on each other, moving away from each other, fighting over the same land for food, or storing their food and then eating it in the winter. Number 2, forest animals and plants are part of a food chain. What is a food chain? Living things that share food with others, living things that communicate with each other, living things that protect their food from others, or living things that depend on each other as food sources. Number 3, spotted skin can camouflage a frog from its predators. What does camouflage mean? To chase, hide, move, or scare. Number 4, animal adaptations take place over time. What are adaptations? Food sources, slow movement, changes for survival, or interdependent webs. And finally, which phrase is a synonym for biodiversity in the sentence below? There is a great amount of biodiversity in the ocean. What does biodiversity mean? Level of water, water movement, change in temperature, or many kinds of plants and animals. Now, you are going to have to think back to everything we have discussed about nature's patchwork quilt this week to answer these questions. If you watched my review video, which is also posted in this same folder, you're probably going to know these answers. What is the genre of the story, Nature's Patchwork Quilt? Persuasive text, informational text, traditional tale, or realistic fiction? What is the author's purpose in Nature's Patchwork Quilt? Is it to convince the reader to make a quilt, to tell a funny story about animals, to inform the reader about how habitats come together to create a wonderful planet, or to persuade the reader to spend more time in nature? Which habitat discussed in the story actually contains many different habitats within it? Is it a prairie, the Arctic, desert, or ocean? How do plants survive the harsh climate of the Arctic and high mountain habitats? They stay alive under the snow, or they make seeds that can survive the cold. People bring the plants indoors for the winter. The weather does not get cold enough to kill the plants. The plants die and come back every year. What are people called that work hard to preserve habitats? Are they students, environmentalists, protectors, or cleaners? Now, for the next few questions, you are going to determine if the underlined word in the sentence is a proper noun or common noun. Remember, proper nouns more specifically are naming something, whereas a common noun is just the person, place, or thing. It's not very specific. Keep that in mind. My cousin is going to San Francisco next month. Is cousin, because that's what's underlined, the proper noun or common noun? Andrew enjoys collecting the baseball cards and action figures. Marcy swam in the Pacific Ocean last week. We walked across the Golden Gate Bridge during our vacation. All right, we are towards the end. I have a selection that I'm going to read aloud that is also informational text. You are going to answer questions that have to do with this story when I'm done. Keep in mind, you're going to have to go back to the story to find the questions. Start practicing that skill. So the title of our selection is Now You're Hooked. There are many kinds of fruits and seeds, apples, berries, and acorns, to name a few. These fruits and seeds are tasty treats for all different kinds of animals. An animal sees the bright colors and eats the fruit, which contains seeds. But some fruits and seeds are not meant to be eaten by animals. Instead, the fruit becomes attached to an animal and catches a ride. It is very difficult for two plants to grow in the same spot. They have to constantly fight for the same water, nutrients, and sunlight. Plants need their seeds to be spread around so that new plants can grow in different places. But plants can't do this by themselves. They depend on other things to help them. Some plants depend on the wind to blow their seeds to new places. Some plants depend on animals to move their seeds to new places. When an animal eats a fruit, such as an apple, it eats the seeds too. The animal moves somewhere else as it continues to search for food. The seeds move through the animal and drop to the ground. Then the seeds can grow in a new place. Plants like Enchanter's Nightshade have a different kind of fruit. Their fruits are very small and furry, like a tear-shaped fluff ball. But the furry hairs on these fruits have tiny hooks. These hooks help the fruit attach to anything that passes by, such as a deer grazing on the grass or a rabbit hopping through the field. The animal probably won't even know it. The fruit has gotten a free ride. Soon, the deer or rabbit will move to a new place and the Enchanter's Nightshade fruit will fall off. The seeds inside the fruit can then grow into new plants. Plants spread their seeds in different ways, but the goal is always the same: to allow new plants to grow in many new places. So, which sentence or sentences from the selection best shows the author's purpose? So, I want you to think of that pie. You first need to determine if the author's purpose is to persuade you, inform you, or entertain you. And from that, which one of these sentences helps show what the purpose is? There are many kinds of fruits and seeds, apples, berries, and acorns, to name a few. But plants can't do this by themselves. They depend on other things to help them. Plants like Enchanter's Nightshade have a different kind of fruit. Soon, the deer or rabbit will move to a new place and the Enchanter's Nightshade fruit will fall off. Which sentence in paragraphs 2 and 3 does the author use to show why it is important that seeds do not land near each other? They have to constantly fight for the same water, nutrients, and sunlight. But plants can't do this by themselves. Some plants depend on the wind to blow their seeds to new places, or when an animal eats a fruit such as an apple, it eats the seeds too. In paragraph 4, the author uses the simile like a tear-shaped fluff ball. Remember, a simile is comparing two things that typically use like or as. So, what is the author using this simile as? Like a tear-shaped fluff ball, to show how the fruit can be fun to play catch with, help the reader visualize the fruit, show the reader why animals don't eat the fruit, or help the reader imagine how good the fruit tastes. And then finally, I want you to explain how the author's use of descriptive details and imagery add to this selection. Remember, descriptive details are what helps you visualize it in your head. You can use your senses to see it based off the words the author uses, or you can hear it, taste it, smell it. And imagery goes hand in hand with that. So again, explain how the author's use of descriptive details and imagery add to this selection. Use the text from the selection in your explanation. You don't want to just tell me anything. I need you to back up your reasoning with details from the text. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Good luck.